Happy Thursday. Today is March the 19th, 2026. Welcome back to the Roadmap to Freedom Personal Growth Healing Program. Today I'm continuing to talk about de-stress yourself. Perhaps it's time to ask yourself, is there somebody that stresses you out on a regular basis? Maybe not just one person, maybe quite a few people. What you need to understand is that, especially if it's a spouse or a relationship, if you're asking people to change, it's hard for people to change. Just think about it for yourself. How hard is it for you to change? And the only way somebody will change is if there's something in it for them, and the reward for them changing is humongous to them. What I have learned throughout my life is that you cannot change the person and what they're doing. You can only change yourself. And by changing yourself to begin, changing yourself is you decide to change your reaction. I remember back in the day when I first left my ex-husband, and he was very angry. He was, exploding. He was confrontational, and I was having a hard time dealing with it. And my dad came over one day, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, look, change the dance. And I thought, what do you mean? And he says, well, he does this and you do that. He says, and then it repeats. He does this and you do that. You do this and he does that. He says, do something to change the dance. And I said, oh, okay. I said, like what? Not reacting. And he said, exactly. See what happens when you do not react. So I did. I remember him flipping out in the arena before our son, was going out to play hockey. And he was yelling and screaming at me about something, I don't know. And I just stood there and I was watching him and listening to him. And he ranted and he raved and he carried on. And when he was done, I waited a few seconds, which seemed like a long time. And I looked at him and I said, is that the best you can do? And he just lost it. He had to walk away. He had to leave. And that was my first attempt at changing the dance. And then I just moved forward and I stopped reacting. Now, I must say, there were a few times when the stress and the frustration built up so bad I did react. So I had to go home. I had to dissect that. I had to calm myself down, and I had to promise myself not to do it again. And I had to forgive myself because I was creating a new reaction, a new thing in my life. And yeah, I tripped and I fell a few times, but then I got back up and I promised myself I would just keep trying. And eventually it just became second habit. Now, what I also learned was when somebody is angry all the time, when somebody is what I call flipping shit at you, it might help for you to realize that they're not reacting to you so much as they're reacting to themselves. You're mirroring stuff they don't like in themselves. They don't know how to control themselves. They're in a great deal of pain because painful emotions that you don't deal with turn to anger. Anger doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's actually emotional pain that we haven't processed. So that, in itself pretty much helped me deal with my ex-husband, realizing that, yes, indeed, he was in a lot of pain. At some point, I transferred from, shaking in my boots and getting upset and emotionally, attacked and melting down myself to having a great deal of compassion for him and for other people in my life, and even out in the world today. You see people flipping. Well, it's all about them. It's not about you. And once you realize it's all about them and not about you, life becomes a heck of a lot more easy to deal with people. So for today, that's it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope you tune in tomorrow. Namaste.